All right, so I am here live at the Swimming in Stars Astrology podcast with Drew Newnam, and we are talking about politics because Drew is a Capricorn, an aficionado of all types of charts, including the chart of the US, our current president, and presidential candidates. And I know you all are wondering, how does astrology affect this current election and the people involved with it? So, welcome, Drew.
Hi.
It's good to
Uh,
have you.
it's nice that we're safely socially isolated
Right.
in Colorado. We're,
As
we're
safe
just
as possible.
we're too lucky. Um, yeah, actually, this whole conversation started the other day, and I was posting. Am I coming through okay? Do I need to?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay, no, okay. I can slow down my speech if you want, um, because on Facebook, I have most of my friends are of the liberal persuasion. I do have some people there in the family who aren't. They don't post a lot, but I still reach out to them. Um, but the big thing I'd noticed was people, especially Sanders supporters. I was an Elizabeth Warren supporter, and the Sanders supporters are really unhappy with Joseph Biden. In fact, they have just pulled up all the nastiness. Of course, there is that accusation from 1993 that he sexually molested a woman.
Right.
And that's something to be, I think he should talk to the woman, frankly. First things first, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
because he is a good communicator. When I was bringing up his chart, actually this started when I was bringing up his chart the other day. I'm going to pull it up for myself here. I am of the school of archetypal psychology that kind of merges some Jungian things with astrology. Jung actually even mentioned astrology in a couple of his works, especially The Answer to Job. And my teacher, who at the time was a standard psychiatrist, statistical psychiatrist, and had patients, started just doing the statistical thing. Oh, my client dreamed about this. Oh, look at this chart, and found out that the things that showed up in the dreams were matched in the transits, daily transits of the client's charts, or the weekly transits. So just kind of an affirmation that astrology and what Jung saw were all natural features of our brain. They're, people, the hardcore scientists are still poking around and prodding, and they're making progress. But it's, the complexity of the brain is probably the most complex thing we know. Period.
Right. Well, and I
Period.
love the Jungian and archetypal research because you can't, science is awesome. And I totally think we should have a scientific approach. And I love that, the history of astrology goes through, archaeological and sociological and cultural markers and history that we can say when
Yeah.
Taurus was here, this is what happened. So it's very scientific in that way. But when we are lacking the feeling or the intuition or the dream work or the things that make us human in the research, it feels like it falls flat. And I think astrology can definitely offer that. And especially a lot of the young people, the millennials, it's just part of their language and vocabulary. It's just a
Okay.
way of life.
Okay. And as someone with a science degree, um, yeah, I started out getting into astronomy, and then I got into biology, and then animal behavior. And what other writers have pointed out is that what Jung did is he was a trained doctor, and he didn't just make this up. He just said, "Oh, my patients are having such and such a dreams. Oh, there's a pattern here. Oh, and here's another pattern." That's how real science starts. You just look at something with fresh eyes, and you start seeing patterns. And he did, and he wrote them down, and he is hypothesizing all that. But the later writers have pointed out, well, this is no different than the behavioral patterns we find in animal behavior. An animal is born, it gets to a certain point, something turns on, it starts behaving in an appropriate way. we do the same thing. We just have more rewritable programming, and not as much as we think either, but we do. That makes us so adaptable as a species. But anyway, these patterns are still there. They've been there since before the Earth, in every creature that evolved along millions of billions of years was under the influence. And the early people didn't have science, but they could sure look at something and see patterns.
Absolutely.
And they did. They saw patterns in themselves and in other people. And they were smart enough, because they had our brain capacity. They were smart enough, and they figured out, oh, this kind of goes along with that. They didn't have anything to distract them. They didn't
Absolutely.
have TV, cars. So they had to sit around and think. Anyway, so that's my short on astrology. Back to Biden, they're afraid that he is sold out to the corporations, that he is no better than Trump. They think he's been in the same dirty deals, and that he's going to not go with us. I understand that sense. The people who are really excited about something tend to have a narrow vision. That's normal.
Right.
Oh, this is the answer. Yes. And we're brought up in an either or type of society where it's this one or that one. It's that one or this one. It's not a plurality, which is how, again, going back to the environment and nature wouldn't have made it this far if it didn't always have options. If there was only one way to do thing, that's for failure. That's the same as they say, divest widely with your portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's what nature does.
Right.
Our society has put that either or type of thing. Oh, if it's not this, we're going to fail. A biologist recently put a post in one of my magazines that said, evolution is not about survival of the fittest. It's a survival of everything that's good enough, because there's plenty of room. If it were just the fittest, then the things that weren't fit would not be there for the others to eat. It's all a network. It's a network. Anyway, computing's going that direction. But anyway, so we're looking at this network of Joe Biden. He's a Scorpio sun.
Okay.
Mercury, Venus, and Mars in Scorpio. So he's heavy invested in Scorpio.
Scorpio stellium, and which is a very common sign for presidential presidents that we've had in the past. Scorpio in the chart happens with either the sun rising or the moon frequently.
Okay, that's good to know. His moon is in Taurus, though, which is a balance to Scorpio. How about that?
It's a full moon.
The moon in Taurus kind of gives him that down-to-earth feeling you get from it, because that's his personality. That's his emotional stuff. His ascendant is Sagittarius, which kind of also gives him a chipper appearance. Good guy, you'd like to know him. It also may be part of what affects him sometimes when he's speaking publicly, because he can go so broadly that he needs to come back and focus down.
Right. Yeah. Distill it. That's not a trait of Sagittarius is definitely not distillation. It's more big picture.
No, it is more big picture. But he can do that because, again, he has that Mars in Scorpio. He can focus down like nobody. You just never see it. It's in his 12th house. It's not something that's out there in the open for people to see. In fact, all of his personal planets are in the 12th house. He's the great person for working behind the scenes. But those people don't often put on a good public persona.
Right.
Same thing with Hillary Clinton, Scorpio.
Yep.
And then here's where I got to put in my opinion. Scorpio gets a bad rap, especially in our culture.
I agree.
Yeah, it's all about the dark, deep things. Oh, sex, death, the
good stuff, Drew.
We project all kinds of crap into it. And of course, Pluto does rule crap. So, and that rules Scorpio. But this is people who can deal with that shit, literally.
Exactly. People that aren't intimidated by that, who aren't going to be overpowered or scared off by anything, really.
but they're secretive for good reason. They have processes going on that just don't work being shared out loud.
Right.
But people in America, especially because we have the sun conjunct Jupiter, so we're like overly invested in, oh, things must be great and expanding and out in the open and knowledgeable and blah, 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 blah. And Scorpio doesn't work that way.
Right.
So we project a lot of negativity on Scorpio, which is one reason Hillary didn't make it, because she had that Scorpio vibe and people would project all the evil onto it. So here we come, Joe. People are projecting all the evil. They think Scorpio is associated with evil.
Well, it's like things we can't understand or things that are more than one level. For some reason, people like want it to be one-sided or one-dimensional, and all of us have good and evil. It's being able to handle that or what we can do with that, and looking at it that way. I'm wondering, what's his midheaven? Is it Virgo?
Midheaven is Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
So that's somebody who can just sit down and do the job.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Virgo.
Well, somebody that is their main mission and why they are out in the world is to help serve others, is to help things be able to heal, to help things to be able to have many possibilities of change that are actually going to improve our personal lives, right? Not just one solution, but many solutions for people.
We need somebody who can just do that. And so far, I say he's qualified for that. But we have our societal bias.
Right.
And look, we were spoiled. Before Trump, we had 3 presidents in a row who were Leos. And Leos are great. They're out in the public. They look good. They project leadership. Whether you like that leadership or not, they project it.
Right.
And Trump is a wannabe.
Yeah.
He's Gemini.
Well, he's got the Leo rising.
He can be two-faced. Why he can say one thing and then say another thing, and then you do this and take it back, and then it's one of the bad manifestations of Gemini. I love Geminis. Don't get me wrong. Sister is a Gemini. I've got some good friends.
Right.
Hey, my son's in the 3rd house, so I can't complain. But Trump's been a wannabe. His if you're into secondary progressions. His projected sun was in Leo up until the election.
Okay.
So he'd gone through a phase of many years where he got into that kind of Leo persona.
Yep.
But he identified with it too much, and he's still hanging on to it.
Right.
And actually his projected secondary progress sun is now in Virgo, but he hadn't learned that yet.
No, I don't think
he's
so.
Got much success doing that. But anyway, so his is a persona. His leadership style is putting on a face.
Right.
And trying to weave the words, that's that Gemini skill, so that he makes himself sound good. And if he gets enough people believing him, no problem. So here's Joe. He's got that moon in Taurus. That is really an honest.
Is he a full moon baby, or is it, how far off are the sun and moon as far as an opposition?
No, they're not full moon. He's not even opposite any of them.
Okay.
It's just kind of the general energy.
Yeah.
Because he's at 0 Taurus, 0 degrees Taurus.
Okay, cool.
And all of his other planets start at 12 Scorpio.
Okay.
And go up to 28 Scorpio. So it's not like a tight thing, but it's there.
Yep. So 6th house moon?
For his birthplace, actually his birthplace is Scranton, Pennsylvania, and he lives in Delaware and worked in Washington, all about the same.
Yeah.
Practically. In the 5th house.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit more connected, I think, to people, to expressing yourself, even though the Taurus moon is a more private moon. It's one that wants peace and wants things to feel good and to feel right, and to be able to act intuitively with that or creatively with that, I think, is an asset. rather
And
than
the
to
thing,
have it be more restricted in the sixth house where it's more of a practical moon in the sixth house, or I've got to get my day-to-day done in a way that creates
right,
peace.
right. He can relate more. He's
Hmm.
more. It's actually he would make him more expressive. So
Right.
I think when he's not on the debate stage, he's really easy to work with and understand. Yeah.
Right.
Um, now, um, something that will be of uh, importance to, again, the radical left who want revolution completely now, uh, uh, is that on his seventh house cusp is the planet Uranus. So he can relate to progressive ideas.
Right.
He is someone, and I kind of got this intuitively. He says such and such on the debate stage. He has a history, but he's willing to engage
Hmm.
with the Uranian type of progressive change that we need. And I think that's good because if you look at the other candidates who are there, they're more progressive and diverse. I think he's the kind of guy who can pull together a diverse team.
Right.
And what people forget, especially with Trump, is the individual, uh, if he's doing it right, he's the executive with a lot of smart people around him.
Right.
And I think that's something Joe Biden can put together. That makes a huge difference. Um, he can work with groups. He's also got Saturn in his seventh house. Um, both Saturn and Uranus are retrograde, and they are conjunct,
Oh.
which is also another balance. And if they're in Gemini, which again, he can handle two sides of things. He
Right.
can handle the tradition of Saturn and what's reputable and what works and conservative, and balance that and bring that together with the more progressive. So the Saturn conjunct Uranus, it's a 7-degree conjunction, but still, that's significant, I think. So he can relate to both conservatives and progressives in the seventh house.
Right.
Uh, so I think that's something we need in our, people call it the leader. I said our primary servant in the executive branch. I think that's something we definitely need.
Right.
Oh, good.
Just popping up
Thank you.
his chart. Does this look similar to what you have?
Um,
This is the one on the
I'm
internet,
checking.
so maybe a little different than your calculations,
Yeah, I'm
but
using a solar flyer. Uh, that's odd.
I don't know if the birth time is the same.
I've got 8:30.
Okay. Yeah, that's what this is. I think it's cool too. Isn't the United States, there's a debate about which chart to use, but my favorite chart is the Sagittarius rising for the United States, and he has a matching rising to the United States.
I
Um,
use a Scorpio one, but yeah, yeah. Um,
well, the Scorpio
it,
one would match all of his Scorpio stuff.
yeah.
It would
Well,
help
and the
the United States
Sagittarius
see out
one,
the world. Yeah.
people say, oh, it's Sagittarius because we come across as a country of expansion and sports and just being open about everything.
Right.
But I see that coming from the Jupiter conjunct the Sun
Right. That'll do it.
in the ninth house. But I don't know. We could quibble about that. Yeah, something's actually missing from this chart, and I'll have to correct that. Solar fire usually doesn't mess me up like that.
His it looks like his north node. I can't quite see if it's Virgo or Leo.
It's
You have a degree of his north node. I'd be interested in that.
let me redo this. I'm always changing stuff around to look at different patterns. So sometimes,
And then we've been talking about
great point.
all of the Scorpio stellium here
Well,
in
there
and near the 12th house.
and
And you were just talking about his Uranus, which I think is helpful as well.
time. should be on there. Okay. Let me check one of the things, maybe the problem. Weird. Okay.
Oh, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
29 degrees, 43 minutes of Leo, not a Virgo North node. I was kind of hoping for a Virgo North node.
Ah, okay. Okay, I see what I'm reading along here. Okay, okay, fine.
All right.
Um, you have the moon. You have the moon right in, okay.
I wanted to look and see what his aspects were to Uranus, because the Uranus is what we want for revolution and for new ideas and for upheaval and change. And his would indicate an upheaval and change through information and
Well,
through information that we can continue to process on a daily basis and that would lead us to better relationships with that Saturn and
sure.
Gemini in the seventh. And it looks like it's making aspect here to Neptune and also to the moon.
Well,
Um,
I'm showing that Neptune, Uranus, and I've got Eris on my chart.
ooh.
I was,
Eris has been a topic of some of our discussions in this group,
yeah.
so that's interesting.
Well, I hadn't looked into it much, but then I put it in my natal chart and it just made something so clear. I said, okay,
Yeah,
I get
some
it.
charts it doesn't do anything, and some you're like, oh crap, Eris.
Yeah. And it moves so slowly, but it's kind of there as a reference point.
Yep,
And, and it, as we get farther out in the planets, it requires higher consciousness to integrate those planets.
absolutely.
And, but just among the standard planets, he has a configuration where you have an opposition and a trine and a sextile, uh,
Okay.
3 planets. He's got Venus, opposite Uranus, Uranus trine Neptune, Neptune sextile Venus.
Yep.
So how is Venus for him? It's on his ascendant practically.
Yeah. Well, and being so close to the sun, those are people usually who relationships are important to and who don't sacrifice relationships for a self type behavior. And Scorpio is also that way. Relationships are also important to Scorpios. And so it's does Joe Biden want to have a relationship with the US and with the government? Like, is he willing to view it in that way? I think. And if he is, then it could be something that would be helpful.
Well, it could be. It'd be the opposite of what we have.
Right.
I mean,
As
really.
right. I mean, right now we've got a bit of a self, the
Narcissist.
self. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Who's disconnected with who knows what, everything. But that makes a good configuration, pulling together, the creative and relatedness of Venus, the spiritual thing of Neptune, and the progressive, let's help all the people and be equal.
Right.
Kind of pulls them together, and maybe he just hasn't, ever been in a position where he can do all of that.
Right.
This
Right.
would be the opportunity.
Yeah. I
I
love
hope.
discussing this, Drew, and I'm hoping we can do some more of these and maybe also compare, Biden to the other runners or, whatever you think would be appropriate. Show maybe Trump's chart versus Biden's or Trump's versus other people who might be, I don't know. I think some people are still considering, going a different way, even if they're Democratic or they aren't in alignment with, they want Trump out of office, they still might be considering going a different way. And so maybe we can look at those other candidates as a point of comparison or whatever you think would be interesting.
Well, yeah, and what we're doing again, I'm looking at the nation's chart because Pluto is coming up. It's to the nation's Pluto return in 24,
Right.
23, 24, which would be, I don't know what to think of that. And just think it's similar to our circumstances in 1776, where in that case it was one big corporation, the Dutch East India, that was screwing us over. Now we
Right.
have a whole bunch of corporations screwing us over, and they're our own. Um, and we need to toss that out. But as I mentioned in a note, Pluto coming towards the end of Capricorn, the process of Pluto and Capricorn is first of all, it kind of empowers the institutions that are there,
Right.
but it's but ultimately Pluto is transformation,
Yep.
and those institutions that don't have a good basis are going to break down.
Absolutely.
So that can be a more of kind of a societal structure breakdown.
It's like
Doesn't
almost a forced transformation. You will transform or you will
Yeah,
crumble. You get to
yeah.
choose, but those are the choices.
And at this point in 1776, Pluto was at the point, or right before that, we were in the point years building up to declaring war. So
Right.
that's kind of scary. But hopefully we have more consciousness now, more resources, more tools, more stability as a nation, and we don't have to go full out and do that. But it
Right.
does bode for we're going to change or die. That's
Right.
kind of one of the themes of Pluto:
I
change or die.
agree. Change or die.
And then it moves into Uranus, and when that did that in 1778 or whatever, that's when we created our Constitution.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
Fingers
as the
crossed.
old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times.
May you live in interesting times. Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to look at more charts together. And this has been
Yeah,
awesome and informative. And
and fun.
do you have a website or a Facebook group that people can join to hear more of what you have to say?
Well, we have Swimming in Stars. Can I post my things on? I'll
Yeah.
post it.
Awesome. Yeah. So you can find Drew on Swimming in Stars and you can link to him, friend him. He's a great person to have in your astrological corner.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome to talk with you, Drew.
And I love chatting about this stuff.
Absolutely. Me too.